Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the regularly scheduled meeting of the Public Safety and Emergency Management Committee. Today is June 12th, 2019, and my name is Alondra Cano. I'm the chair of the committee, council member for Ward 9, and this morning we are joined by Council Member Steve Fletcher and Council Member Lene Palmisano. We are waiting for one more person to have official quorum so we can conduct the official business of the committee. We know that Councilmember Philippe Cunningham is away today, and hope that he is taking care of the city business he's in charge of today with that. We do want to start with our public comment period. We want to be able to hear folks who have shown up this morning and get us started on that front before we adopt the agenda. We need one more person so we can officially adopt the agenda and receive our discussion item. So let's go ahead and get started with the folks who have come this morning to join us for our regularly scheduled public comment period. And we'll start with Todd Schumann, followed by Mr. Chuck Turchik. Please come on up to the front, and you can have three minutes to address the committee.
Thank you. Madam Chair, committee members, my name is Todd Schumann. I live at 5048 Vincent Avenue South. Last week, former Minneapolis police officer Mohammed Noor was sentenced to 12 years in prison for the on-duty murder of Justine Damon-Druschek. In her sentencing decision, Judge Catherine Quaintance highlighted numerous concerns that trial jurors discussed with her after a verdict was reached. Quoting now from her statement, "Will some of these supervising officers be fired or disciplined? Is what we saw normal for the Minneapolis Police Department and the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension? How will this be prevented from happening again? Why are officers more concerned about their personal safety than the safety of the public, especially in such a low-crime neighborhood? Why was there so much discussion of ambushes? Why should a civilian have to be afraid of approaching a squad car? And what about the motto on the car door, to serve with compassion?" Judge Quaintance continues, "The jurors were particularly concerned with Officer Harity's statement that his priority was making sure he did whatever he had to do to get home safe each night. Jurors remarked that they thought the priority of the police was supposed to be to protect and serve the public." These remarks do not come from activists or radicals, but from ordinary citizens who were baffled by the way our justice system operated in this case, and from a judge who was helpless to offer an answer to the jurors' questions. But Judge Quaintance did conclude her statement with a call to action. Quote, "Minneapolis residents await the promised transformation, and the questions of the jurors remain unanswered. What has changed? What will change so this does not happen again? And how does the department address officer safety without jeopardizing public safety? The jurors and the people of Minneapolis need and deserve answers. I am here today to ensure that the city does not forget its obligation to address these questions. Officer Noor is headed to prison, but the Minneapolis Police Department remains on trial. Thank you."
Thank you for your comments. We now have Mr. Chuck Turchik, followed by Mr. Dave Bicking.
Madam Chair, committee members, Chuck Turchik, 2112 Portland. Sometime in 2014, the Minneapolis Police Department invited the United States Department of Justice to do an audit of accountability procedures within the Minneapolis Police Department. On January 28, 2015, the Department of Justice Office of Justice Programs Diagnostic Center issued such a report. The police chief and the mayor at the time invited in all sorts of community people for a Department of Justice presentation on that report on that day. The city officials proudly proclaimed they had invited the DOJ to do this study not in response to some recent high-profile incident, but simply to improve the Minneapolis Police Department. The police chief announced she was accepting all of the report's recommendations and would soon be forming implementation committees to come up with recommendations on how to implement the study's more generally stated recommendations. And that's what the MPD did. 5 committees comprised of city council members, city staff, police officers, and citizens were formed to come up with implementation recommendations, which would be forwarded to an OJP steering committee, co-chaired by then Assistant Chief Chris Arneson and then Deputy Chief Madera Arredondo. which would make the final recommendations on how to implement the LJP report's recommendations. The 5 committees were a Performance Mentoring Committee, a Police Conduct and Oversight Committee, a Community Engagement Committee, a Communications Committee, and an Early Intervention System Committee. Most of the committees began meeting in February 2015, and some of them met well into 2016. Well, in 2018, I began wondering whatever happened with the implementation of the LJP recommendations. What had come out of those committees? What had the steering committee ultimately decided? And how are those implementation recommendations put into effect? So at the July 10th, 2018 meeting of the Police Conduct Oversight Commission, a citizen group one would think might be concerned with the DLJ study of how to improve the Minneapolis Police Department's accountability procedures. I suggested they should consider putting pressure on the powers that be to find out what is going on with this issue. I got no response. So I followed up with an email to the PCOC on August 4th, 2018. That email was copied to, among others, Chief Arredondo and to all 6 members of this committee. To you 4 people, and the 2 who aren't here today. So you have been aware of this now for about 312 days. Again, no response from anyone. In the months that followed, I wrote to Chief Arredondo again. I wrote directly to the 10 co-chairs of the committees. After hearing from an aide to Councilmember Cunningham that the issue would be discussed with him the week after my August 4th email to the chief, I made several written inquiries of that office as to what happened as a result, all with no response. I wrote an email addressed directly to the mayor, no response. I discussed this issue in person with John Elder of the MPD's Public Information Office. I gathered bits and pieces of materials available online that had come out of the committees. I heard back from 2 committee co-chairs with what they knew had come out of their committees and what the results had been as far as they knew. I was told by the chief on November 29th at his reappointment hearing that maybe Chris Arneson, no longer a city employee, would know. After MPD Commander Granger made a presentation at the December 2018 meeting of the PCOC on the newly revised Minneapolis Police Department EIS system, in which he said the revisions had tried to incorporate suggestions that had come out of the OJP EIS Implementation Committee, I asked him where I could access those recommendations and was told he didn't know if they were public. I sent another email to Chief Arredondo asking him to instruct the commander that yes, these could be released to the public. Again, no response. In late December or early January, I discussed this issue with Councilmember Ellison while walking to the light rail. I discussed this issue again with Councilmember Ellison and then with Councilmember Fletcher at their community open houses. I raised it in person in meetings with Jennifer White and Gia Fatali of the mayor's office, on 4 different occasions with aides from 3 of your offices, and by phone with aides from or by leaving voicemail messages at all of your offices. After one of those rants, I did hear back from an aide to Councilmember Jenkins, who said she was unable to find anything more and didn't see anything else that could be done. I wrote an email addressed directly to the members of this committee, no response. I raised the issue a few more times during the meetings of the PCOC. I made a formal data practices request to the city clerk's office and did receive something back that I hadn't seen online before, but nothing from the steering committee. And at the May 2019 meeting of the PCOC, a commissioner finally announced that she had raised this issue with Deputy Chief Halverson, who said the MPD had dropped the ball on this and he would be getting back to her. So far, nothing more. My question for you is, what in the hell is going on here? Have you all been sworn to a cult of secrecy on this topic? It's not as if police accountability is an insignificant issue in this city. It's not as if citizens are apathetic about this issue. I could go through all of the nonsensical excuses I have heard throughout this saga, some of them from some of you, as a matter of fact, and tell you why I think they don't make sense, but I will spare you that. But in response to there's nothing more than you can do, I would suggest this. I know you don't have oversight of the police department, but you do have a bully pulpit. This committee should request that the chief of police appear at one of your meetings and publicly inform you what has happened with this OJP implementation process. Was it dropped? If so, why? Were the citizens who volunteered their time and energy, some for a year or more, to serve on those committees, informed of what happened as a result of their efforts? If the chief doesn't want to come in and appear before you, you ought to go public with a letter to Mayor Fry with the same questions. If the mayor doesn't want to answer, you ought to take it upon your shoulders to send letters, not emails, to all of those citizens who served on those committees, telling them that for some unknown reason or reasons, the city did not follow up on the work that came out of those committees, and that on behalf of the city and the MPD, you apologize to them. You also might formally request that the chief or the mayor communicate the city's regret at its failure in this regard to the Department of Justice. And if they won't do it, you should do it. Otherwise, why in heavens should the United States Department of Justice ever again respond in such a fashion to a similar request coming from the city of Minneapolis? The Department of Justice's press release on the issuance of the OJP report on January 28, 2015 is headed, Department of Justice Diagnostic Center provides final assessment to Minneapolis Police Department to help build trust between police and the community. The follow-up process to the OJP report and the lack of response to my nearly year-long inquiries does little to help build such trust. The first paragraph of that release reads, today the U.S.
Mr. Tarchik, we got to wrap it up here. Can you wrap it up within the next 30 seconds?
I can finish it at your next meeting. I'll come back to it and make comments till I finish it. I'm down here on this page. I could wrap it up in 2 minutes.
Can you make it 1 minute?
Okay, I'll try. The first paragraph of that release, and I'll just quote the relevant sentence in that paragraph, the assessment focused on goals set by MPD, including improving police accountability and preventing officer misconduct. Lofty goals, incompetent follow-up. This whole situation has been ridiculous. My initial request should have been dealt with in a week, 2 at the most. I am embarrassed for my city, by my city, and of my city. By this detailed description of my efforts, I am not suggesting it's about me. No. It's about you. You should be disturbed. You should be disappointed. You should be embarrassed. And despite your predictably reminding us that you have no oversight power of the police department, you can do something about this continuing city embarrassment. Another paragraph of the DOJ as a press release says that they applaud Chief Hartold, the Minneapolis Police Department, and the community on their leadership and commitment to implementing sustainable solutions that will lead to increased public trust and safety for everyone. My hope is that one of you, just one, will demonstrate some leadership and commitment on this issue. Thank you. I'm sorry I took so much time.
Thank you, Mr. Turchik. I do want to see if my staff member, Graham, can connect with you briefly here so we can set a meeting to talk more deeply next week. I understand you have a series of issues here, and I want to make sure that we can connect with you before the next public safety meeting. Thank you. He's right here. Thank you. So I want to make sure you guys get on my calendar, that you get on my calendar next week. Okay, so up next we have Mr. Dave Bicking, followed by Brian Reich.
Hi, I'm Dave Bicking, 4200 Cedar Avenue in Minneapolis. Just some brief comments on the proposed body camera contract that you'll be considering today. On Channel 5 TV last night, Commander Travis Glampy was quoted, quote, "In the near future, our squad cars will sync up with the body cameras. And that means when the emergency lights are turned on, when an officer gets in his or her squad car, the body camera will automatically turn on." Now, before you get too self-congratulatory about this new development, I must remind you that your body cam purchase contract in 2016 included 200 Axon signal units. That is the device that's mounted in the squad car, which automatically turns on all body cameras within a 30 to 50-foot radius whenever it's triggered by the lights and sirens or by whatever other triggers, such as doors opening, that the police department would want to set it for. Those signal units were delivered on March 15th, 2016, exactly 1 year and 4 months before Justine Damon was murdered. At the time of her death, they were still collecting dust on a shelf. They could have made a difference. I've passed out the documentation from that purchase contract. I actually read these things, and I'm glad that I do, because last summer I asked Chief Arredondo about their installation. It turned out that no one in the police department remembered them. From the chief on down, they were still collecting dust. He committed to their installation as a result of our conversation. As of our meeting with the chief last month in May, 75 of the 200 had been installed, while the rest are supposed to be installed as the cars go into the radio shop for other work. So no great rush on that so far. This is over 3 years since they were purchased. Great new development, but don't get too self-congratulatory, as I said. The point is, though, that you have the power of the purse. With that comes responsibility for oversight. That what you bought, what you was bought with your appropriation is actually put to its proper use. There has been controversy regarding the relative power of the City Council and the Mayor over the Police Department. Please use the power of the purse that you have. On a similar but more important note, CUAPB sent a letter to the City Council before your previous body cam contract, urging you to obtain a body camera policy from the Minneapolis Police Department before appropriating $4 million for their purchase. You didn't do that. 2 business days after that vote, the police department released its body camera policy. It was terrible. It was weak and it was confusing. And we all know how that worked out. So, as you consider this new contract, please correct the mistakes of the past. Lives depend upon it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Brian Reich, followed by Eileen Jackson.
Madam Chair Cano, fellow council members, my name is Brian Reek. I appreciate the pronunciation, though I would have gotten a little bit less teasing as a child for it, but I appreciate your time here this afternoon. I'm here to urge you for additional resources and a greater police presence and just any potential additional resources that this city could offer to the community of Uptown and the general Calhoun Square area. I am the Director of Human Resources with Infinite Vapor. We are a small electronic cigarette retailer throughout the Midwest. We do have a location at 1400 Lagoon Avenue South. We are in the heart of the sort of bar district, right there on the cross-section of Lagoon and Hennepin, right off a main transit line as well. I personally have been in charge of either working or operating that particular store for about 5.5 years now. And it is very clear to see over especially recent times, over the last 6 months to a year, that the condition of the neighborhood, the type of individuals that choose to spend their time in the neighborhood, and what the neighborhood has been attracting has gone, for lack of a better term, downhill. I think I've seen a pretty substantial increase in both petty and violent crime that has occurred, and these are just coming from our perspective of being a little hole in the wall between the Uptown Tavern Bar and Grill as well as Cowboy Slim's Bar and Restaurant, both of which are phenomenal establishments, and it's no fault to them, but the type of individuals that choose to spend their time out there, whether it be in the late afternoon, early evening, or the late evening, the type of individuals that have been attracted to the area are less than ideal for the safety, I feel, of not only the individuals who live there but work there as well. I've got one of our awesome employees, Eileen, here with me today to share some of her experiences, but a few things that have come up that I'd like to just list for you here today with my remaining time. A few instances that we've had to endure and come up with solutions for, and as a Director of HR, one of my main roles and responsibilities is ensuring that all of our staff members are working in a fun and safe environment, and I think we can all agree in every single environment, whether it be a school, museum, public service building, safety is of the most paramount importance. It's everyone's #1 concern, and I think it goes without saying that we've done a number of things to try and increase safety at our location, including installing an electronic door switch. We staff 2 people at all times now to have additional presence. We actually have a hired security guard for Thursday, Friday, and Saturday evenings to help filter the individuals coming in and out of our location, but we still endure problems on a regular basis, and we are still in the, quite literally, the crossfire of violence potentially every day. As recently as June 8th at 4:08 p.m., I do believe there was presumably what is considered a drive-by shooting just a block up the street from our location on Fremont Avenue, I believe, resulting in 1 person being killed. Could easily have been Eileen on her walk home from work or any other individual just trying to walk their dog in the neighborhood. Dating as far back as November 11th, 2018, last fall, we have been dealing with issues with a a large grouping of juvenile individuals who have been coming in, committing robberies, petty theft, vandalism a number of times at the McDonald's that is directly across the street adjacent to our store. There's been a number of bar fights and brawls that have occurred even as early as 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon on things like a Tuesday or a Wednesday, things that you honestly cannot prepare for or predict by any stretch of the imagination. I cannot imagine what these gentlemen have to deal with on a daily basis, but I know it can't be easy, but all I can do is at this point really urge you to put more time, energy, and resources towards that effort, because it is a genuine concern of mine. I'm almost surprised to not see more members of the community expressing their concerns at this point, but I would appreciate the opportunity to meet with any of you individually to discuss options further, but I appreciate you listening, so thank you.
Thank you for taking the time to come down. Our next speaker is Eileen Jackson, followed by our last speaker, at least on the sign-in sheet, Jordan Hoff.
I'm Eileen Jackson, 3310 Fremont. Madam Chair, council members, thank you so much for taking the time out to listen to us. I definitely really appreciate it. As Brian said, I work at Infinite Vapor over in Uptown. I've worked there for about a year. I live in the area. I've lived there for a year now, and I love the Uptown area a lot. I've always known it as kind of a safe, secure place. I love how active the community is and how involved everyone is, but as of late, in the past 6 months, I've just noticed a shift, sort of, in violent crime, as well as just petty crimes. Just last Saturday, we were working and it was still light out, and we heard multiple gunshots down the street, and we had no idea what was going on. And it really doesn't affect you until you are kind of in it, because I'd heard a lot about other crimes. Like, I'd been involved in, there were people trying to rob the store, and, just extremely intoxicated people coming in and harassing me and my coworkers. But actually, like, being in those scenarios is really scary, and I personally haven't noticed a huge increase in the amount of law enforcement around the area. We've done a lot with our shop, at least, again, with installing electronic door switch and having bouncers and all of that, but there is only really so much that we can do to protect our customers and our employees. But yeah, I do really appreciate the work that you guys are doing, but we would love to see definitely more activity in the Uptown area. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for coming down. We have Jordan Hoff, and then if we have any other speakers, please do sign in and register right here with the clerk. So Jordan, please go ahead.
Hi, thank you. I'm Jordan Hoff, 3840 20th Avenue South, and I am here today as a former employee of Minneapolis Emergency Communications Center, doing 911 dispatching work. I left MECC in September of 2018 due to working conditions that I found to be completely soul-sucking and honestly feeling very forgotten by an almost total lack of leadership and the city's irresponsibility. Sorry, I'm a little nervous. I've never done this before. I'm here today because I've been away from MECC for almost 9 months, and nothing has been done. I'm watching my friends get stomach ulcers and canker sores from working conditions and stress. I'm watching my friends leave MECC without any job lined up because this work is just so taxing. There's a complete mismanagement. And now the city is down 36, there's openings for 36 dispatchers in the city of Minneapolis, and we can't fill those spots because people don't want to stay. As a former employee and a resident of Minneapolis, I'm just disgusted. I took the job. Anyone who works as a dispatcher takes this job because they care about their city and they want to do good work. And it's not easy. You go into the job knowing that, but the things that are happening are frankly just unbelievable down there. As a thank you for the work that they do, they get sheet cakes and slushy machines once a year and overtime every single day. Hours and hours and hours spent on the phone or working with our colleagues in emergency services. And they're just completely forgotten, left in the bowels of this city, and only brought up once a year and not thanked as the first responders that they are. And I'm just, honestly, just completely flabbergasted that this issue continues to get ignored. And the mayor's not doing anything about it. I don't see city council doing anything about it. I just wonder, what do you think happens when you call 911 for your kid who's going into anaphylactic shock? You know, do you want to wait for 4 minutes just to talk to someone so that you can then get transferred to another medical dispatcher? I mean, it's a serious problem. We are the voice, they are the voice on the other side of the line. You need to care. You need to go down there and see what they are doing in the sub-basement of this building right below our feet. Care about them. Look into what is going on. Hire a director that's competent, that is not going to tell lies and falsehoods to reporters when this issue tries to get brought up. I know I'm not the only ex-employee who's been here to talk to you. I mean, for how long? How long does this have to go on? You have to care about them. We live in the city, and they deserve better. Enough with the sheet cakes and the slushy machines once a year. Appoint a director who understands the work and who understands how to manage people and actually lead. Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Our next speaker is Catherine Barna.
Good morning, committee members. Catherine Barna, 110 Warwick Street Southeast. I speak to you today as a citizen of Minneapolis and also as a former 911 operator. I dedicated approximately 2 years of my life to answering calls from the public. It's not an easy job, as Jordan mentioned. I came to the profession after being a towing dispatcher for 5 years, and when I left, I started working at a rape crisis center. So it wasn't as if I left because I didn't have the chops. People leave jobs not because of the job, but because of management. That is why I left. In August of 2018, when I left MECC, I conducted an exit interview with the city, and I submitted a document 2.5 pages long detailing my reasons for leaving, specifically citing members of the management team, including the former director, Heather Hunt, as part of the problem at MECC. This isn't the type of issue where if something goes wrong in that department, it's dollars lost or minutes wasted. People die. People die because of the mismanagement going on at MECC. And I don't come to harangue or admonish. I'm coming to beg. I'm begging you to do something about it. It is so terrible that since I left less than a year ago, over 100 years of dispatching experience have walked out of this city. I changed careers completely. I'm no longer in public safety because my experience at MECC was so revolting to me. I left the profession entirely. It is not fair to the citizens of this city. It is not fair to the employees of this city that they are consistently ignored when they reach out for help and try to speak to these problems. When people call 911, needing to wait for now 4 minutes because of understaffing, that is reprehensible. That is below the national standard for call answer times. And it's not because of the call takers. It is because of poor management, inability to retain employees, inability to adequately train, and inability to adequately staff. These are solvable problems. In the few months before I left MECC in mid-2018, the city spent $50,000 on overtime for MECC employees. That money could have been used to hire temp workers who are employed by other similar PSAPs in the area. There are other 911 centers in the area. There are other people out there who would be willing to come in and do this job on a temporary basis or on an interim basis. The staffing issue needs to be solved. And from a financial perspective, this is going to come back and bite the city. There's so much money that has already been spent on hiring and training people who have left, like people who have come in and turned right around and walked right back out the door. I'm not the only person who didn't even get fully vested in the city pension before they decided to leave because conditions were so bad. Someone is going to have a negative experience calling 911 on behalf of a loved one or themselves. There's going to be terrible fallout that has a human toll, and the city is going to be on the hook. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for coming to speak to us on this issue, and I'm just typing an email to staff to get us some more information about this issue. This is a public comment period, so we can't really engage with the public right now on this topic, but please know we are paying attention and listening to your to the items that are being brought forward today. Do we have any other speakers that want to come forward today? We have reached the end of our list. Looks like we're at the end of it. So with that, I do want to welcome Council Vice President Andrea Jenkins to the meeting, and that means we have official quorum. Therefore, we are going to first adopt the agenda and then go ahead and receive and file the comments from today. So as you will see, for today's Public Safety and Emergency Management Committee agenda, we have 3 items. Item number 1 was receiving, filing the public comments. Item number 2 is consent, which is an agreement between the Minneapolis Police Department and the Blaine Police Department for mutual aid during large-scale events. And item number 3 is a discussion to review and authorize an increase to a contract with Axon Enterprise, Inc. for purchase and storage of body-worn cameras, tasers, and CAD integration. All those in favor of approving the agenda, please say aye. Aye. And I'll go ahead and receive and file the public comments. All those in favor of receiving and file, please say aye. Aye. We will now move on to our third item, which is our discussion item. So if we can please have the leaders who are going to be presenting on this issue join us here at the podium. And this is the authorization of an increase to contract number C40520 with Axon? Yes. Okay, with Axon Enterprise. I'm sorry. I don't know why that's throwing me off. Axon Enterprise, Inc. for purchase and storage of body-worn cameras, tasers, and CAD integration. So please take it away.
Chair Cano, council members, thank you. My name is Commander Travis Glampy. I oversee the Business Technology Unit along with our support services for the police department. The way the department is broken out is the Business Technology Unit is responsible for procurement of the body cameras and procurement of the taser devices. The training unit is responsible for the deployment of those tasers, and I have with me today Lieutenant Johnny Mersell from training to talk more or to answer questions specific to those when we get to it. So very quickly, just the presentation and hopefully elicit the questions based on that. Originally, we entered into a contract with Axon in March of 2016, a 5-year contract for 600 body cameras. After that, we did receive approval in budget for upwards of 888 cameras for total deployment across the entire department of all licensed peace officers. And since that time, we have purchased more cameras. We're right about 717, I think is the number of total cameras right now. The original contract included, as I said, the 600 cameras. However, that total dollar amount that we budgeted for in the contract with Axon did not include the future budget we received from the council to go to a total deployment. So while we received budgetary approval from council, that it came after the original contract, so that contract doesn't hold enough authorization to totally fund it. We also had an approval for our CAD integration, which is computer-aided dispatch. It's what our dispatchers use, what our officers use on the street to receive all the information on the calls they're on. And we received a budget for that integration into the body camera system, which basically allows anytime there's a video created, it's automatically tagged with the case number, the type of call, the retention period of the video, all those mistakes that my colleague Commander Granger comes in and talks to you about in his quarterly audits. This takes the guesswork out of that, makes it automatic, and essentially gets rid of those nasty problems where you transcribe a couple numbers and throw the case numbering system off. We did receive approval for that. The funding is actually going to, or the price is actually going to go up based on the number of cameras we will be having in place as opposed to the original cost we quoted with that 600. Since that time, we've also received a federal grant, which was awarded to us this year. I believe it's approximately $400,000, and that's meant to expand our program as well. So a number of things are coming together as we request this today. And then, so ultimately our request here is to amend our current contract through 2024. So essentially a 5-year extension on our current contract. That will include additional cameras. So we'll have complete deployment from every officer to the chief of police. That will include me, Lieutenant Mercil, everybody in blue uniform will have that camera. It's going to include the storage, it's going to include the CAD interface, and then we're also upgrading, asking to upgrade our tasers, our conductive electrical devices, and we would like every patrol officer out on the street to have that device available as a tool. One other piece that I didn't list here, but I would like to include is those devices have a 5-year warranty. They have a life cycle to them. And I remember coming to this committee, different members in 2013, some of our tasers were like 7 and 8 years old. And what we would like to do, this will put us on a constant cycle. So we're not having to come back to you every year and saying, well, we had 75 expire this year, we need more. This will put us on a 5-year cycle, so we know every 5 years we're gonna come forward and seek additional funding, but it would be consistent with the length of the contract. So, talking about the numbers, this is the budgetary breakdown of the options in front of us. We are looking at going with, the department would like to go with the new technology, the latest technology, which is called the X7 taser. And over 5 years, you could see it would be $6.7 million. If we were, and this outfits everybody in patrol, I should say that, with that taser. If we were to stick with the current model, the cost is $6.3 million. And then if we were to only go with cameras, additional cameras and no additional tasers, over 5 years, it would also be $6.3 million, $13,000 less. The one thing is we have been offered discounts. As you can see, the breakdown of the yearly costs, Axon has offered us discounts to go with those tasers. And then just the breakdown of those 3 columns, 1 and 2, depending if we stick with the X2 model or the new model that we're requesting. It's going to allow all our patrol officers to carry the equipment, includes CAD interface, Axon is honoring the prices in our current contract that we have for years 4 and 5, and then essentially that would be years 1 and 2 in the new contract or in the amended contract, and then putting discounts in there as well. So with that, that's a presentation we have, and I was hoping to elicit any questions or take it from there as far as the presentation goes.
Okay, it looks like we have one comment or a question from Councilmember Fletcher.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks for this presentation. This answers most of the questions. We had a chance to talk in advance, so I asked for some transparency around this, and you've provided a lot of it. That's great. Can you just quickly clarify, what does the X7 get us? What's the advantage of the new model? Is it worth paying the extra money for that?
Council Chair, Councilmember Fletcher, in our opinion, so this is the latest model that TASER has put out. I think they started putting this out late last year, and it offers some distinct advantages to the current model. And one is it's meant to have better penetrating power through clothing. One of the problems we've noted with the TASER in Minnesota is when you try, jacket season's 10 months out of the year, even trying to get effective use out of those with somebody with a light jacket can be difficult. This has increased the ability for that probe to make contact. It causes no more injury, but it increases that probability. It becomes a smart device. It's one thing is the current tasers are meant to have a range of approximately 21 feet. What the studies have shown is that most contact with the tasers happen at a distance of about 8 to 10 feet. And even that difference of 10 to 11 feet in the spread of the probes as they go out makes a huge difference. Through their research, they found that the optimal distance to have them calibrated for is approximately 10 feet, and these have gone ahead and done that. They've changed the angles so that when an officer is, within that 10 feet range, those are going to be more effective. They've also recalibrated the electronics. This is all, it's getting into the technical aspects, but certainly the effectiveness of this new device for us is something that we would like to go to. Not that the current model doesn't do its job, we just think this is going to even be better for us.
Thank you. And how often are we using tasers in the field?
Then I'm going to turn over to Lieutenant Marcel. He's got all the numbers in that regard.
Chair Connor, thank you. Councilmember Fletcher. In 2018, we had 135 uses of the taser. 10 years ago, when tasers weren't as prevalent on the department, we had almost 400 taser uses in a year. So the taser use is going down, which I think is a positive thing.
And if I could just add to that, I remember reporting back to this committee again when we were here in 2013, and we threw out the number of like 60 deployments. That was actual firing of the probes, and since that time, we've also required our officers, anytime they take that taser out and they red dot, it's called, when they point the laser at somebody, which is is a precursor to firing it, or they arc the weapon to display it, we're now requiring officers to record that and report that information. We didn't before. So the number that we had back in 2013 of right around 60 did not include those displays where we're actually displaying the taser. So we would have expected our numbers to go up dramatically from that time, but the actual number of times we fired the darts in the last 12 months, 62. So we are very, very consistent, it seems like, in our uses, but again, it's just we're over-reporting in the sense that we want our officers reporting the number of times they've even displayed them without actually making physical contact.
That's great, thank you. I'll just note for the public that I raised some questions in our meeting around Are there competitors to Axon? Are there opportunities to look at other companies? I understand that there are not. I'm a little bit begrudgingly supporting this because I've had some concerns about Axon's involvement in, for example, the ketamine study and some of the other things that raise some concerns. But in this case, it's a fairly limited opportunity for suppliers for this, and having access to non-lethal weapon technology seems like a worthwhile investment. So I will be supporting this, but I do just want to register that I have a little discomfort with this provider, and I wouldn't mind seeing there being other options in the future.
Council Chair, Councilmember Fletcher, we did take a look at what are the options for us with the tasers, and quite frankly, there aren't any that I saw. It is a very specialized device. The body cameras, again, because they go so closely together, our plan with this is to have this 5-year contract, and then as we get to the end of this, now that we will be in full deployment, which was our goal all along, is to get to this point, then hopefully the technology has improved across the board, and we have the ability to, at least make sure we're at 5 years from now continuing in the right direction. But for now, there does appear to be that single source, and then certainly with the body cameras, we are very happy with the performance and with the storage plan and the access that our partners have with getting that evidence. So yeah, unfortunately, there's just no competition from that single source right now for us.
Thank you.
Sounds good. Councilmember Jenkins.
Thank you, Chair Cano, and thank you, Mr. Glampy, for that presentation. I'm curious, similar to Councilmember Fletcher, how many officers currently have tasers, and what's the protocol for firing your taser? I know you said you had some protocols around camera activation, but when does an officer use their taser?
So, Council Chair and Vice President Jenkins, we have approximately 420 tasers deployed right now. Mm-hmm. It's between 410 and 420. We've got the exact numbers. We can pull those up. We're always in a state where if somebody retires and turns theirs in, it's not automatically. We don't give it away right away. We have to, it takes some time to get it in the hand. So I use that range. As far as the deployment goes, we utilize the force continuum that specifically states that you have to it's like any use of force. You have to use the least amount of force necessary before you can go up to the next. So right now, you would have to have considered things like distraction techniques, chemical aerosol, joint manipulation, things that are going to bring about a low likelihood of injury to a person. So the taser usage, your ability to use it's getting very high on that force continuum. The other thing with this to emphasize is when we train, and all our officers every year have to go through, is it 8 hours of recertification?
4 hours for the recert.
4 hours of recertification every year on top of the initial class. And it's de-escalation. It's another opportunity for us to emphasize de-escalation from beginning to end. It's very rare that somebody can just show up and pull a taser out and use it. It takes an extraordinary amount of circumstances. We expect our officers, like with any use of force that they've considered or at least had the opportunity to use lower levels, and including de-escalation techniques, before they utilize that taser. And certainly, like I say, again, we stress, not only in all of our trainings, but especially the taser training, the de-escalation part of it before the actual deployment and physical use on a person.
Mm-hmm. And then, does every officer have body cams?
Council Chair Cano, Vice President Jenkins. So right now we have approximately 700 out of 900 of our officers have body cams. Every officer out on the street has a body cam, and approximately I don't know if I quite answered the previous question, so I'll take this opportunity. So with those 420 approximately tasers, right now we have about 600 officers in a patrol function, including our canine officers, those kind of specialty groups. 420 to 410 of them have tasers right now. So we're about 200 away from body cams and tasers of having where we want to be fully deployed for both cameras and for our entire patrol with tasers.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. I'm not seeing any more questions, so if you wanted to say any closing comments, or otherwise we're looking good over here.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you both for being here. Alrighty, so this has been the discussion item, and I'll go ahead and move this for approval, which would be authorizing an increase to contract number C40520 with Axon Enterprise Inc. in the for the purchase and storage of body-worn cameras, tasers, and CAD integration. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And without further business before us, we are adjourned. Thank you.